What if I told you that the next 6 months, right here in the real estate market of Calgary, could wreck some homeowners financially? Why? The home prices are high, interest rates extremely unstable, and the tariffs, well, we know how that's going. Now, if you've already purchased or you're looking to purchase this year, this video is going to be extremely important for you to both understand the real estate market, the opportunities, and the common pitfalls that most buyers are definitely going to fall into this year, despite me putting out this video. And no, this video is not about some fear mongering. It is purely strategy and no fluff. It's the truth, and it's everything you need to know and understand to feel empowered going into this real estate market, because there are a lot of opportunities, but at the same time, there are a lot of things you need to watch out for. You're not alone if you're wondering, did I just buy at the peak? Or should I wait for all of this madness to calm down before I purchase something in this market? And the market's totally going to crash, and that's the opportunity I'm waiting for. And these are not just questions, these are actual fears that make or break someone's wealth. And guess what? I've totally been there. I've bought at the wrong time and also sold at the wrong time and missed out on a lot of opportunity in the past. So first, let's try and understand what the ground reality really is in the Calgary real estate market. Because it is very easy to get carried away with all the news headlines, what the media outlets are trying to promote, and everything between the political situation manipulating the media, and there's so much else going on that it is very hard to get a clear idea of what the reality is, because everything gets distorted among all the things that we hear through different media outlets. Are there absolutely no buyers right now? That's what everyone will tell you. And the buyer sentiment overall definitely has dropped. A lot of buyers are reaching out to me right now, but they don't want to pull the trigger. I'm coaching them through the different situations and scenarios based on their individual goals and what they're looking to achieve, whether it's in the short term, mid-term, or long term. And that is extremely important. It's hard to take a general sentiment of the market and where the entire market is trending and just jump on that train, because that is definitely not going to work out for you. And that's where a lot of personal mistakes come from. Right now, from all the open houses that I'm conducting on every weekend, I'm primarily seeing a trend where a lot of buyers are trying to go for value driven properties. So properties that have basement suites or have that backyard suite or have a full oversized double garage and are priced well, they are still going really fast, and a lot of buyers came through. For example, a property that I had with the turnkey Airbnb basement saw 9 families come through in a span of 3 hours, versus another property that was more on the luxury side, say close to the 850 price range, saw only 2 families come through in a 4 hour time span. Now, what most people don't realize that in a falling market like this, even though the prices have gone up month over month, but when the sentiment is this negative, there are a lot of opportunities to take advantage of. Most properties right now are going under a list price even after they've seen price cuts. For example, an apartment that I recently put an offer on had 10,000 price cut. On top of that, we discounted it another 10,000. And by doing this, you're getting ahead of the market. So while most people are waiting for the market to fall, whether that happens or not, you are able to get a good deal today anyway, lock in that price, get a better interest rate, and then you're protected longer term, whether the interest rates come back up or the prices come back up. Whatever happens, you've already entered the market and you've got yourself a good price. Over the last 2 or 3 years, an opportunity like this didn't exist at all. Even in winter months, though the seasonal data comes down, it still didn't present any opportunities like what I'm seeing right now in the market, especially on the affordable segment. And yes, it's given that apartments is a very cyclical market when it comes to Calgary. But if you're looking for that entry level property and you're going to hold it long term, which is key, then you do not have to worry about the short term fluctuations or things that are going to change this market within this 1 year. Something that people don't realize, for example, with when it comes to interest rates, is even though the variable rates have come down significantly over the past 1 year, and the fixed rates have also followed with all the recession fears, but this is not a permanent situation, because if inflation ticks back up, when it comes to Trump's tariffs, and if we see an impact on the economy where the prices start going back up, then the Bank of Canada will be forced to increase interest rates again. And people would think that the interest rates that we have now are the normal and it's what we're going to have longer term. But sub 4% on a fixed rate is actually a great deal. And so, something I'm seeing mortgage brokers actually advise a lot of clients is that if you know you're going to be in the property long term, now is when you want to lock in your fixed rates because they are below 4% and keep that for 5 years versus trying to time the market on pricing and then miss out on the interest rate. As far as the Trump tariffs go, it's an extremely uncertain situation. The guy changes his mind every week, almost every second day, in fact, and having an entire country stand still and just wait on to see what he's going to do next, in my personal opinion, is a recipe for disaster because your entire life is then left on hold and you're not able to make any financial decisions that are extremely important for your future. Instead, the way you could actually approach this market is take your time, reach out for a consultation, see what the market situation is, what the stats are saying, how different areas are performing. Because certain areas, for example, that generally would see a lot of demand and high amounts of competition in a regular market, you might be able to snag a good deal in there and secure yourself, give yourself a $20,000-$30,000 buffer for even if the prices happen to come down in the next couple months and then correct. But now you've taken advantage of the situation. You don't feel rushed. You can take your time to browse those listings and really find something that's a perfect fit for you and your family versus being forced into a property over multiple offers and a bidding war. As Warren Buffett always says, be greedy when others are fearful and be fearful when others are greedy. And over the last 2 or 3 years, everyone's been extremely greedy in the Calgary real estate market. But now is such a great time because I'm seeing, for example, apartments, townhomes sit on the market for like 25, 30 days. And it's so easy to get in a price that you want and negotiate those conditions. And I know how hard of a time buyers had over the last 2 or 3 years. And this is such a luxury right now in the market for buyers. And it's a great thing to take advantage of with the perfect knowledge of understanding what's going to happen in the market going forward while getting ahead of the curve versus jumping in and being greedy when everyone else is going to be greedy down the line. Right now, the real problem is most buyers are trying to time the market. And that strategy has burnt out more buyers than I can tell you. They're all trying to say, I'll time the bottom, and when the bottom's out, that's when I'll buy. But let me tell you something, the market moves fast. Even the stock market, we saw what it's been doing in the last couple of weeks, the amount of crazy swings that we have and everyone just waiting to jump in, jump out. And you do not want to leave yourself to that level of volatility because once all buyers start rushing in, and it's not that there are no buyers, all the buyers are just waiting on the sidelines. So there are a lot of people waiting to still get into the market. And when that starts happening, you don't want to be part of that crowd. You want to have that time, that buffer time of a good couple months to really browse properties and take a good look and make sure you find a good fit for you and your family, because then you can have access to not just good properties, but all the good communities that generally are very, very rushed when the market swings the other way. The other really important strategy to adopt, or a mindset, I would say, to take on is long term. Don't get carried away by the day to day, week to week news. There's always going to be swings, and I'm going to show you some charts to help you understand how the market shifts from time to time. You'll have to understand and see what is the best decision for your family and where your financial situation is. This is definitely not a time where I would tell someone to stretch their budget, or if they have a job that has a high level of uncertainty tied to all these tariffs, then probably yes, waiting on the sidelines might be a good decision right now. But for example, if you have a very stable job, or if you're working in an industry that you know is going to do really well, you have a good amount of savings, now is a great time to leverage that situation, take an upper hand on the market, find good deals and secure a good property, and be in a situation where you're comfortable but also have the security of the payments that you know you need to make on a month-to-month basis. This is not the time to take risks. Things can change very fast, but just waiting on the sidelines and watching the news is not the right move for sure. A phrase I always like to use is when in doubt, zoom out. And Calgary has always been a cyclical market. There's always been booms and busts. There was a boom from 2004 to 2007, 2014, 2015, and then 2020 to 2024. And we've also had a bust, for example, in 2008 and then 2015, 2016. And the reason all of this feels so familiar is because we've been here before and we'll be here again. What's really going to help you make a good decision in this market is understanding what the long-term picture for each property type does. And I'm going to move over to my computer here to show you some quick graphs that go over 2 decades, and you'll understand what the volatility for each property type is, because each one operates differently depending on the level of crashes that are happening. And therefore you can position yourself depending on your risk level and how much mortgage eligibility you have, how much finances you can afford, and have some level of safety and stability, so you know what you're getting into versus blindly trying to enter the market. And I have a lot more data like this that I help with my buyers for whatever questions they have, to then help them have more confidence in their decision going forward. So now what we want to take a look at is the 4 different property types, and over time how they've had their active listings versus sales, and how that has affected the actual close price. And the reason this is extremely important, because it will give you an understanding of how volatile each segment of the market really is, and what your risk level is if the market does go down, versus if you actually secure a good price right now versus waiting. So taking a look here first at detached properties, you can see the active listings peaked in 2008 at 7,000 listings. And right off the bat, I can tell you where we are right now is nowhere close to the amount of listings we had back then. And I've heard some crazy stories from realtors of how difficult it was to sell a property back then. And here you can see the amount of sales drop. So back in 2007, you had 2,000 sales around here. And then all of that dropped. By 2009, we were somewhere close to like 400 sales. So we had peak listings around then, and then back again in, I would say, 2018, 2019, peak listings, and then the sales slowly declining over time all the way down to 2020. And if you look between 2020 and 2024, you have your peak sales rising out of control. And then that was when you had all the bidding wars and multiple listings, while your listings was just on a constant straight down decline. And that was the real problem. We didn't have enough listings on the market for the amount of buyers that we were seeing. They were both going in the opposite direction that time. But now the listings have started correcting. We have a healthy amount of listings, definitely better than last year. Nowhere close to our longer term average. Our longer term average is closer to 3,000. We still don't have that many listings. We could by summer reach somewhere close to that point, putting us more in a balanced market, which is healthier both for the buyer and the seller. And then you can see our sales are slowly starting to go up again this year. I don't expect us to go back to these levels, because these are not your highest, these are not your longer term averages. Your long term average is more around the 1,000 line, and then in peak times you can go up to maybe 2,000. So I expect us to go probably around 1,500 by summertime. And how has this all affected the actual pricing for detached properties over the past 2 decades? So if you look here, even during the times of peak months of inventory, when we had 10 months of inventory here and then almost 9 months of inventory around here, you can see your pricing doesn't decline as dramatically. So our pricing was around, I would say, 430, 440,000 here, right? 450. And we dropped to just below 400,000. So that's a $50,000 drop. But then if you just continue holding over a decade from 2007 to 2017, you're already up to 500,000 again. So the whole idea is buying properties that you know you can stay in for a while. Even if you held for about 5 years, you'd be back to where you were or more. And it's all about finding those good opportunities when you're on this down decline. No matter how deep you go, you want to find good opportunities that hold more value when you come back up. And that is the key strategy to keep in mind for this market, so that you're not just blindly shopping for any property. And even right here, when you saw your peak inventory, you saw the pricing drop. but it was a lot more stable and it held pretty well from about 500,000 and it dropped to about, I would say, 470, 460 is what it looks like. And then you get this huge run up. Now, this huge run up is not normal. And if you've been part of the stock market or even in real estate for a while, you'll understand that something like this does need to be corrected, but it's not going to correct dramatically back down to these levels because now Calgary has significantly more value to deliver. And so you're going to see some level of correction, but you don't want to miss out on this run up because by the time you time it, you don't really have much time before everyone starts jumping into the market and comes back up. And so overall, our understanding from this is that detached is definitely less volatile. There's lesser things to be afraid about in terms of trying to time the bottom, and in fact there's more opportunities to for the upside. Now when you're looking at duplex properties, right here again you're going to get the peak of listings around the same time, so 800 about here, and then around 2018 2019 same thing, we reached almost 1,000. As far as sales go, our flat lines about here, and then you can see the peak listings here, and then up lowest drops were around here where we were less than even 100 properties actually. So right now we are overall in terms of sales, we're still at a healthy level above the longer term average. And then when you look at the amount of active listings, we're still significantly lower than where we were longer term for the past 20 years. So we still have enough space to run up and keep ourselves in a balanced market, considering that the sales should increase by summertime. Now, when we consider how the impacts for all of that has been on the pricing for duplex for the past 20 years, as you can see, there's a lot more volatility when it comes to the close price on duplex properties. And that's why it's super important to understand how one property compares to another. Now, while there has been extreme volatility, all of that volatility is relatively short term. So duplex tends to fluctuate up and down really fast in the short term. And so you would have to average this trend out to understand where the pricing is moving. And so duplex is definitely the wrong place to be if you're looking to sell really fast for whatever reason. But if you just hold out, it has a good level of stability, very similar to detached properties. So if you average this curve out and you hold it, for example, 5 years, you're pretty much back to where you were or a bit more. And if you hold for 10 years, you're generally always up, except for, say, maybe around 2013 to all the way to 2019. That's about 7 years. So 6 to 7 years. About here, it was pretty much a flat line. But again, if you try to time it, you never know really when the bottom's going to come in. And by the time it happens, it already moves up so fast and all the deals start moving up quickly because you're waiting on new listings and the listings are getting taken up by sales. So it's not really like walking into a supermarket and trying to catch a good deal because there's limited inventory at those times and those deals go pretty fast because the better properties go first and then you're left with picking from the worst one. So how does this volatility now translate over to townhouses? Let's see, townhomes, again, active listings peak around the same time. Townhomes did have way more fluctuations, so we do have more peaks, not as high as 1,200, for example, in 2008, but we do see listings come up and go down from time to time. As far as where we are right now is actually pretty much at par with our longer term average, and therefore townhomes could very easily enter more into a more strong buyer's market because we're already pretty balanced out with how much listings we can expect compared to the last 20 years. As far as our sales has been relatively stable, and you can see our peak sales was again around here when the markets were hot in 2007 2006, and then peak around here, and then 2014 2015 crash, and then we have the low mo, and then when we go up 23 24 again peak sales. So now we are starting to move off in the opposite direction here, and that's going to indicate that we're going to go from either more into a balanced market or more towards a buyer's market. And how does this all then affect the pricing for 20 years of townhomes in Calgary? If we look at 20 years of townhomes in Calgary, you can see here at 330,000 over here, and then we dropped all the way down to, I would say it's about 260,000. So the percentage of equity drop on a townhome is it's more significant than what you lose, for example, on a detached property. And so, in terms of the percentage price fluctuations, definitely townhomes is more volatile. It's not as volatile short term, like the up down fluctuations are pretty minimal compared to a semi detached. But as far as how low it can go and how high it can correct, it's definitely a lot more than detached and semi detached. And therefore, townhomes definitely something you want to get a much better deal at. You want to take your time looking at properties right now and be prepared to hold that property for a while. Whereas detached, semi detached, it's a little bit different of a situation. And so here you can see, in fact, from 2015 all the way till almost 2020, 2021, you just had a constant downward trend of slow declines. It would have been very easy to give up on this market in that period of time versus having a strategy that then allows you to hold that property and wait for the next upside. Because these markets are extremely, I don't want to say volatile. These markets are extremely cyclical, and so you just have to be prepared to ride the market with where it's going versus being stuck in a financial situation where you're forced to sell, and that is the worst that I've seen. And it really, really sucks because you know there's opportunity on the other side, but you can't hold out for it. So now, how does apartments work? Apartments has been known to be the most cyclical and the most volatile when it comes to Calgary. And so apartments also carry a lower level of risk. Even though they have had a huge run up in the last 2 years, they're still extremely affordable and significantly cheaper than all other property types. And so the percentage risk of price fluctuations is still relatively lesser, but we will see how different apartments is compared to all the three other segments. So right here you can see, as far as the total number of sales go, it's relatively pretty flat. It does go up and down, but it's not as volatile compared to what we saw in the last 2 or 3 years. So all the way from 2020 to 2024, there's a huge run up, right? Huge decline. This is seasonal data, so this is usually like December, November. That's the time when like sales drop significantly, but then sharp rise during summertime. And that happens every single time, but the rise and fall is usually never that big, except for the last 3 years. But again, now as far as listings, you have the peak amount of listings in 2008, and then a huge segment here where a lot of downtown condos were just left empty. People were leaving the market. Huge crash, 4 or 5 years, and then that's why apartments are extremely volatile, because a lot of downtown apartment condos are just left vacant. People leave, and this is usually when an oil crash happens. So people are fired from the oil industry and have to leave, and that's the dependency on the oil industry that you hear very often people talk about. But how does that affect the median price? So as you can see, the median price, huge fluctuations. Now, while it's easy to dumb this down to a single graph long term and see average it out, but you can see how volatile apartments are. You went all the way from here at peak pricing at 300,000 to way below, and at the lowest point we were barely at 225. So that's a huge loss of equity and very hard to recover from. And it took you back another about 4 years, 5 years to get back to even just the break even point. In fact, a lot of things that I hear people talk about is how people bought at the peak in 2014, 2015 and still didn't recover. Now, it took them 10 years to get just break even. You can see this huge downside and huge upside. So the big plus point with apartments is that the barrier to entry is relatively lesser compared to all other property types. And so if you're still a first time home buyer and you just want to build equity and then eventually use that equity to upgrade or move into a bigger home down the line as you get salary increases or another person in your home starts working, apartments is a great entry point because it allows you that additional potential for becoming an investor when you start renting out that property. And the key is you do not want to buy in very saturated areas where there's tons of apartment listings. You actually want to buy in family friendly neighborhoods, great schools. You want to buy with access to amenities, LRT access, access to malls, and all those things. And so there are very strategic key communities that you can invest in and have a good long term rental opportunity with lesser turnover and protect yourself during these downturns. So apartments overall, of course, way more cyclical and there's more volatility. But again, the idea is that you want to hold long term. And that is the key strategy that I'm trying to tell buyers right now. Have a long term mindset. So I hope you found all these graphs useful. It gives you a better idea of how each different segment is so different, and you can generalize the entire Calgary market. Now, of course, all of this also changes when you look at very specific communities or quadrants of the market. So definitely reach out if you want to get an understanding of that and to know if a particular segment of the market is actually a good fit for you, depending on your level of risk and what kind of property you're looking to buy. So to summarize everything I've said so far into three key points that and sentiments that I want to you to hold on to as a buyer this year is number one, short-term plays are not the way to go. Do not listen to people who have made a lot of money just because they got lucky and they made a short-term bet or a swing and they made some money. That's not the way to go. You definitely want to have a long-term mindset. Point number two is the Calgary real estate market is cyclical. Expect downturns, expect upswings. And the way you're going to win is by having a longer term mindset. Plan ahead what you can afford. Don't stretch your budget. And whatever you qualify for, in fact, come down from that and go with something that you'd be way more comfortable with. There are a lot of ratios that you can use to understand how much your mortgage payment should be compared to your total salary. If you want idea on that, definitely reach out. And then the point number three is diamond hands always win. Having a little level of disconnection from the crazy amount of negative news that we see, because you have to remember these news media outlets make all their money from negative news by just selling you ads and trying to promote negative news. Negative news travels way faster than good news, and so you have to be careful to be disconnect from this for a little bit and understand what your personal goals and objectives are. Anchor yourself in data like this, like what I showed you. There's so much other things that you can look at so that you have confidence on what the market's going to do, what it's going to perform, and make your own decisions going forward. And I would love to help you with that. So these are the three key pillars I would tell you to hold on to as sentiments entering this market, so that you do not feel stressed and just swayed by the market on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis. What am I doing in this uncertain market? And I've had actually buyers ask me, what would you do? The fact is, I'm actually looking to invest this year, and I am looking to get a hold of a good investment property and catch myself a great deal. And so I'm going to do the same thing as you. Be very careful, just observe the market, take your time, don't feel rushed into any deal. Once you find a good opportunity in a great location that is just sitting because where the market's at or where the buyer sentiment at, but you're able to identify a good opportunity and get something far below the market value, then definitely go for it. And then that's exactly what I'm doing. I myself am looking to invest in the next 3 months. And so I'll be keeping my eyes out for a good deal too, just like you. As my last piece of advice for those of you who have already purchased in this market, that's amazing and congratulations. I'm really happy for you guys. And if you feel, I really hope that you got a great deal, because this is the market to be getting great deals, and you've probably bought well under the market value for that property, which is perfect. What I would do is cut spending for sure overall and try to build a reserve fund so you're prepared for any contingencies, whether it's repairs on the property or for personal situations. And also, I hope you bought well within your affordability index so you didn't stretch all the way till your mortgage qualification. As long as you've taken all of that and it was the perfect time for you to buy, congrats, and you've taken advantage of the market, and that is exactly what this video is about. So well done. This is a market that's going to reward those who have well prepared and punish those, unfortunately, that are just passive. As a buyer, you do not want any hype. You do not want to be buying when everyone is rushing into the market. You want a calm, honest, and data-driven strategy, which is what this channel is all about. If you found this video valuable, definitely subscribe, and I'll continue giving you the truth. And if you need any help, if you have any questions, you want to clarify where your situation is, what you're thinking to do, and whether it would be the right fit for you, and you want to get a better in-depth understanding of the market, definitely reach out. My contacts in the description below. Super easy to book a call. It's a 1 hour call with absolutely no obligation. I sit down with you, run through all your short-term, mid-term, and long-term goals, and see what's the best fit for you, because it's not always the right time to buy or the right time to sell. It all depends on your personal situation, and this is something I always believe. Thanks for staying tuned till the end. Let's continue building wealth together, and I'll see you guys in the next video.